Next guest shares the outrage, Florida GOP Senator Marco Rubio. But, Senator, people should know that Senator Lankford and Senator Sinema and Senator Murphy working pretty much in almost secrecy, trying to put together a bill that might pass both chambers. So no one really knows what they're talking about yet, do they?
Yeah, and look, I mean, these things are complicated, so when you put them together until they're released, you know, and you're operating on innuendo and rumor and so forth. So I want to be fair, because I think the things James Lankford wants to see, what he prefers to see, are good things for America. The fundamental problem I have is that at this moment, the reason why we have a border crisis is because we have a president that won't enforce the immigration laws. Our border laws and our immigration laws have not changed. They are the same today as they were under Trump. The only difference is Trump enforce the laws, in addition to putting in place things like remain in Mexico. If you're in a third country that's safe, you have to stay there and you have to apply from there. Not releasing single adults that are crossing the border. And then Biden on day one repealed all of that, and that's what kicked off the border crisis. So my fundamental view is that if the president that we have now won't even enforce those things, he won't even enforce current immigration law, how can anybody pretend that he's going to actually enforce even stricter ones? He just went to the Supreme Court to fight against border security, to keep Texas from protecting itself. And this is the guy we think is going to take whatever authority he has and use it to protect the country. This is not a matter of authorization. He has the authority right now to secure our border. He doesn't have the willingness to do it. And he's not going to get into another fight with his base over. But what he wants is for there to be some deal that he can point to and say there was a bipartisan deal, even some Republicans are on board, but the crazy Republicans in the House killed it, and so therefore blame them for the border. That's what he wants. He can seal the border right now. He can help reinstate remain in Mexico, reinstate safe third country, stop releasing single adults that are crossing the border.
Senator, there's no doubt about it. There's a little bit of a fracture because you have inner city mayors who are feeling the price. You have Democratic governors of Massachusetts who are paying the price. So this has really changed. It's no longer those Republican states have an issue with the border. This is a country. Don't you agree that it's a little different now than when you were working on it?
Well, first of all, when I was working on it, it was 400,000 people a year. That's almost how many we had in the month of December. So it's a completely different situation in terms of the crisis that we now face. The second big change is, look, I mean, everybody's okay with things until it becomes their problem, right? So when this was not your problem and you were thousands of miles away from the border and it wasn't your state and your city that was being overrun, you know, it was easy to sit in New York and Chicago in the Northeast, wherever, and say, oh, we got to be compassionate. We got to let anybody in who wants to come in. Very easy. When they're closing your schools because you need to house people, right? Now it's a different situation, right? Now they're dealing with the reality of it. The bottom line is this, and this is happening in Europe, this is happening all over the world. There's no nation in the history of the world that has been open to or willing or happy about having, you know, millions of people pour into your country that you don't even know who they are, en masse. No country in the world would tolerate it. No country in the world thinks it's a good idea, except apparently here. Now under this president.
So you have another focus, and that's our national security. You're well-read in foreign policy and military aspects of anyone in the Senate. And you write this in an op-ed. Here's an excerpt. The military recruitment crisis is more dangerous than we know. Put it in perspective, sir.
Yeah, well, we missed our targets big time last year on recruitment. And the answer is, number one, because, you know, through a combination of things, kids have been taught that the military action, the U.S. military in the past, it's not a good thing. It's actually done harm. The second is people, you know, imagine you're a young person today and every day all you're hearing about is veterans are committing suicide, veterans are homeless, veterans are suffering from mental illness, veterans who were harmed in the service of our country now have to fight to get care from the VA. And the third thing is, you know, we've turned the military into a social experiment. I mean, you watch some of these social media posts under Biden's Pentagon and it's all about, you know, something about gender, something about sexual orientation, and nothing really, or what they should be focused on, which is protecting our country from enemies that want to harm us. So you combine these three things, and unfortunately, many of the families and parents who once viewed military service as an honorable thing and a good thing and a worthwhile thing are now looking at it and saying, you know, why do I want to serve in that? And why do I want to be a veteran one day if my own government's going to mistreat me and my own society may ignore me? So I think all those things combine to really harm our ability to recruit people to serve us at a time in which we're facing growing threats all over the world.
And I have to ask a senator from Florida to talk about this. Instead of the President of the United States urging a country to defend itself, we need to see some image ads of men and women in action gaining from their military service, what they do after, and let them know what a great option it is than ever before. I don't even see a commercial on television, except for laudable organizations that are trying to help the wounded. And I think people are getting the wrong message that everybody who goes into the military ends up hurt or damaged. Final thought?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, how are you going to encourage people to join something that ultimately, for a lot of people, turns out to be bad? So we have to fix that. We got to treat our veterans better because it is impacting recruitment. But we also have to help people understand that there are skills that you can acquire in the military that are applicable in the real world, and we need to make it easier for them to do that once they leave service.